Good morning, everyone. I'm Janet Ginn, President of Pines of Sarasota Foundation, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Wit and Wisdom. I know I know. So let me start over. You guys, I'm nervous without you here, so I wish you were in the room with me. So let me start with saying that I know we thought in 2021 we would all be in this room together. But as you can see, we're not, and I can speak much better with you here with me. As we prepared to send out the invitation for you to join us for lunch, we had a realization, which was that we couldn't, in all good conscience, invite you to be here in this room with us, enjoying a special time together, when at that time we couldn't invite our family members to be with our residents in their home at Pines. So once again, we gather together virtually, and we miss you terribly, and again, wish you were in the room with us, but we thank you for your understanding. 4 people who are here in person with me today are our wonderful panelists, John Thaxton, Roxanne Jaffe, and Dr. Lori Stryker, along with our moderator of 9 years, Ray Collins. We are so excited that they agreed to be with us and to join us today, and I can't wait to hear their story as they share their journey with us. As always, we offer thanks to our sponsors for their support, generosity, and commitment. In particular, our platinum sponsors, McIntyre, Elwell, and Strammer General Contractors, and Mrs. Marilyn Schumann. And our gold sponsors, Kavarian Labash Dietz Group at Baird, BMO Wealth Management, Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Publix Supermarkets Charities, Promote and Martin Insurance Agency, Ruston Luxury Homes, Kathy Ruston, Schutz and Bowen, Studio Plus, and our sweet Helen Louise Vetter. We thank all of you for your generosity. All of our generous sponsors are listed in your program book, which I hope you received electronically and have had a chance to look through the book. We are so grateful to each and every one of you. We are also truly grateful for the Kiwanis Foundation. They are matching all Wit and Wisdom donations given up to $10,000. So if you make a gift today, it will be matched by the Kiwanis Foundation. As you know, the Kiwanians have been part of Pine's family from the beginning, and they continue to support us today at the center of a new era. Next month, Pines of Sarasota's new skilled nursing building will be finished, ready to welcome residents right after the first of the year. What began, can't believe it, nearly 2 years ago with a shovel in the dirt has become the embodiment of our future. We have begun to look forward, and we are excited about what we see. Take a look. until you can join us in our new building as we open our doors to seniors in our community who need the kind of care that only Pines can give. Pines of Sarasota has been serving this community for generations. And with this building, the transformation of our campus, and with your continued support, Pines will care and serve for generations to come, and we are so grateful. To tell you more about our new facility, please join me in welcoming Mike Ward, President and CEO of Pines of Sarasota. Mike?
Morning, and thank you, Janet. We're so grateful to you, the Mertz Foundation, our board of directors, and to all of those who support Pines of Sarasota and our Sarasota community. At Pines of Sarasota, our mission is our focus, to care for those who can no longer care for themselves. For 73 years, this has been our mission and our commitment to this community, as we intend to carry it forward and preserve it well into the future. Our mission is the reason why we are here, and we are excited to share with you the wonderful future of Pines, a future that is now, with purpose and vision, and the reality of becoming a transformed campus. This vision began with a group of visionaries that included our board of directors, Pines senior leadership, Janet and her wonderful team, and the Pines Foundation. This vision soon became a reality with the hard work of Janet Ginn, who found a wonderful donor, the Mertz Foundation, who also shares this vision with us, a partner who has worked through the construction process with Janet, our senior leadership team, and our colleagues over the past 2 years. This transformation of the Pines of Sarasota is happening right now. Our new nursing care center is nearly finished. The brand new fully funded building is replacing several older buildings on our campus which were more than 40 years old, so that we can provide the very best state-of-the-art rooms, equipment, and comfort for the residents we serve. I have to tell you, every time I walk through that brand new facility, I am so excited that we get to care for what will become home for 90 new residents. Each private room has its own bathroom and shower. The atrium areas and the large courtyard bring in the outdoors in with sunshine and light and fresh air. The expansive dining room overlooks a beautiful pond. Our new memory care area has an indoor activity area that creates the feeling that you are outside with plants and trees and the sound of being outdoors under a full-length skylight so that residents can see our beautiful blue Florida skies, all while being located in a safe, climate-controlled environment. It is truly one of a kind in healthcare for dementia care programming. Our inpatient, outpatient rehab and therapy gyms have been carefully planned with state-of-the-art equipment so that residents can progress and achieve to a level that ensures their very best quality of life. In fact, the entire building is designed to fit perfectly with our existing building to provide the best quality of life possible for our short-term patients and our long-term residents. That's why I'm so excited. All of this work is being done so that we can continue our mission to provide the best health care to those who can no longer care for themselves, the people who need it most, especially for those who have outlived their financial resources. We are here for our community, our Sarasota community. When you need our care, we will be here for you. Your ongoing support of Pines of Sarasota is so very appreciated. And we are committed to our original mission, founded by the Kiwanis Club 73 years ago, that we continue to honor today to offer individuals a fulfilling life in rehabilitation and senior care community. We pledge to that mission well into the future, the bright future for Pines of Sarasota. And I'm honored as your president and CEO to lead this team well into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, so much. And it is an honor to be a part of this team that is providing for Pine's future for generations to come. Wit and Wisdom is always a very special moment in our year, and I am so pleased that it has brought us all back together, even though virtually, because being together is what is important. It's what matters. Sometimes we lose track of that, of what really matters, especially as we navigate the day-to-day of our busy lives. Often, when I'm talking to you, our donors, you ask me the question, what really matters? How are our residents? How are our residents? It's such a simple question, but it means everything. It's at the center. It's at the heart. It's every day we focus. It's every decision. It's every dream. It's every plan, every hope at Pines of Sarasota Foundation. How are the residents, and how can we ensure that they are safe and well? Well, for seven of those 7 decades, and especially in the past year and a half, the answer has been the residents are safe and well. You have made that answer possible. Your generosity, your confidence in us, your belief in the importance of our mission and in our future. The residents, they are safe and well because of you. I'll be honest, and you can tell by how I'm not presenting today very well. I think about the past year and the difficulties that we have faced. And I can honestly tell you that at the beginning of the year, I couldn't possibly have predicted what would happen. But now I'm not talking about the virus and all of the hard times. I'm talking about your support. In the midst of everything, you have given us the ability not just to carry on, but to carry forward. There's a new HVAC system in our existing pavilion, keeping our residents and staff comfortable. The service areas in our dining rooms in the pavilion have been renovated and upgraded. There's new washing machines, and there's new dryers. There's new therapy equipment, and there's new education and training for our staff, our CNA program, and so much more. I don't have time to name it all. In addition to the wonderful new skilled nursing building, there's a new child care that is planned. On the horizon, we also will have a beautiful park for children and residents to enjoy together. Can you just imagine our seniors and our children walking hand in hand through the pathways of the park? And most importantly, most especially, Pines of Sarasota residents who have outlived their financial resources are still in their home at Pines. You did that. You did all of that. And we are so very, very grateful. As I mentioned, I've been thinking about the hard times and what we can learn from them. How do we persevere? How do we make it to the other side? Well, last year at Wit and Wisdom, our panelist, Rod Hirschberger, told us his survival story. He had been scuba diving, and when he came back up to the surface, his boat had floated away. He was in open water. He was all alone, and no one knew where he was. He swam and floated for 24 hours before he was rescued. He survived because of three things. He had knowledge, he had strength, and he had hope. He knew about water and tides and how to conserve his energy. He was a lifelong athlete, strong but both physically and mentally. And he had a loving family that he wanted and was determined to get home to. The residents at Pines could probably teach us a lot about persevering through hard times. Think about all the changes that have occurred over the last 80, 90, 100 years and what they have lived through. The world is a very different place than it was 100 years ago. Well, it's frankly a different place than it was 2 years ago. But they kept going in good times and in bad times. And to have you, and you have kept going, and so have we, with your help. Because we too have knowledge, strength, and hope, the knowledge that what we do changes lives for the better, the strength that comes from a commitment of helping others, and the hope of a bright tomorrow. And we have one thing more. We have love, because love is at the heart of all and all we do. The tennis player Andre Agassi once wrote, "Remember this, hold on to this. This is the only perfection there is, the perfection of helping others. This is why we are here. We're here, and Pines of Sarasota is here because of you and because of all you have done and will do for Pines residents. The next time you wonder how the residents are, I hope you will know that they are safe and well because of you. If you would like to contribute to Pines of Sarasota Foundation today, and I hope that you will, your support will be doubled by the Kiwanis Foundation. You can visit our website at pinesofsarasota.org and click on the donate button. If you prefer to contribute by mail, remember to make your check payable to the foundation. You'll find our address on our website or in your Wit and Wisdom program book. So, on behalf of everyone at Pines, our boards, our staff, and especially our residents, thank you. Thank you for what you have done. And thank you for always believing in us and our future. So it is now my great pleasure to welcome Ray Collins and the Wit and Wisdom panelists.
Thank you, Janet, and good afternoon, everybody out there in Sarasota and beyond. I'm Ray Collins, and honored to be my 9th year as the Master of Ceremonies. It is absolutely a pleasure. We've got a great system now. Terry will call me every year and say, okay, here are the 3 panelists this year. And I'm curious about people. I like to study success and what makes people tick. And I love hearing about the panelists, and I meet them all. In most cases, I know them all already. And I'll delve into their past and find out what they did along the way that made them so successful. And today, we're going to share some of those anecdotes about what they did to get to where they are in our community. So first I'll tell you their titles, and you'll recognize them, and then I'll tell you more about, again, how they got to this point. So closest to me is the founder and president of Magnifying Good, Roxanne Jaffe. Next to Roxanne, you'll recognize the former county commissioner and currently the senior vice president for community investment at the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, John Thaxton. And next to John is the founder of Stryker Consulting and the former president of USF Sarasota Manatee, Dr. Lori Stryker. So thank you all for being here. Great to have you. And now that you know the titles and you know that already, now let's, as Paul Harvey once said a few times, now it's time for the rest of the story. Sitting closest to me was a little girl who grew up near Johannesburg in South Africa. She wanted to be a social worker, but she also had a very active imagination. Roxanne, tell us more about growing up in South Africa.
So I firstly thank you, Ray, for the kind words, and I'm really honored to be with sitting on a panel with John and Laurie. They're two people who I've really admired over the years. So I grew up in, it was a very loving family, extended family, were all around. We were very, very close. However, we grew up with the backdrop of apartheid. And because we were really exposed to the idea of social justice, fortunately, we actually all left for the United States, not en masse, but probably by 1985, my whole family, including cousins, uncles, and aunts, had settled in the United States, where we continued. The love, the sense of humor, sense of adventure, curiosity, maybe a little dysfunction, but mostly a normal American family other than our accents.
Good. We'll continue the next chapter in a moment, but now we'll go on to John, a fifth-generation Sarasota County resident. He grew up thinking he'd be a high school biology teacher. He wound up doing a little more. He was an environmental advocate, a county commissioner, and I love the anecdote about the fact that he was actually born in St. Petersburg, so therefore, in his family, he was considered a northerner, or even a Yankee, right, John? Tell us more about what it was like growing up in Sarasota County.
Well, I grew up in central Sarasota County in the small fishing village of Osprey. Those of you familiar with Rossler's restaurant are familiar with my childhood home because I grew up in that building. We had a chicken ranch there with several thousand chickens, several hundred rabbit, cattle, swine, turkey. So it was a family working ranch, and it was just a surreal place to be at an amazing time. There was no Palmer Ranch there as we know it today. Palmer Ranch was a functioning cattle ranch. And so I had the perfect childhood, one that I wish every young boy and girl in Sarasota could experience, but alas, much of the wildlands that I enjoy have been replaced by shopping centers and residential communities, and so that they'll have to go elsewhere to have those experiences. But it was a very different place. Osprey at that time in the late 60s, early 70s, it was an entirely segregated community. There were no persons of color, of any color to speak of. And there was quite a bit of dysfunction in the community, and a little bit of dysfunction in my family, similar to Roxanne. But I too grew up in a very loving family with caring parents, brothers, and sisters. I was the black sheep of the family, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit more later.
We'll definitely find time for that.
Well, yes, but it is a pleasure to be here between these two remarkable ladies.
Speaking of the final panelist now, she was a little girl in Boston who grew up hoping to be a Latin American ambassador. She became a university president. Not too bad either. Laurie Stryker, tell us more about growing up and how you moved from Boston to New York to South Florida.
We came to Florida in the late 1950s to South Florida, and from Long Island, and that was a big move because when we came to Florida, there were still white and colored water fountains in the town that we arrived in, which shocked us. The schools were segregated that I went to, so it was a big change. And when we came to Florida, the population was under 5 million, and as you know, I guess it's 23 million or something today. So it was a very different place in South Florida. I have a brother and a sister that were 2 years apart. Each of us were 2 years apart, so we did a lot together. And Florida was very welcoming because everything was brand new and open. I went to MacArthur High School, and if some of you are from South Florida, you know the MacArthur Dairy. Well, they had donated the land to our high school, so we had cowpucks everywhere. So this was quite a shock to a gal from Long Island, but it was a great place to grow up, and frankly, I've never left Florida in my career.
Didn't have to. Roxanne, take us back to the emotion that you must have gone through, extreme emotion, when you were told or you decided, tell us about that, to go from South Africa to the United States. What happened? Who decided that? And what was that like?
So it wasn't a decision. It was a way we were raised. I want to be clear, we did not leave South Africa because we were afraid of blacks, because there was apartheid. What Laurie just described was exactly the same, probably worse. We left to give our children and future generations a better life. We didn't want them exposed to that, to the violent type situation, and it wasn't a tough decision. It was a progression of how we chose to live our lives. The defining moment was when my little children, who were babies at the time, witnessed some horrendous violence of police towards some older black gentlemen. And as we were standing watching this, I kind of covered my kids' eyes and said, "That's it, we're leaving." So that was
it.
The progression of the decision, but it wasn't really a line in the sand, we're leaving. We never felt attached to being South Africans. We actually rather felt guilt about being white South Africans.
I want to hear more about your transition in a moment, because it must have been interesting. I want to hear about the differences and when you arrived here. But let's go back to central Sarasota County now. The oldest of 6 children, an Osprey, close to his mother. Mother was a strong influence, but nonetheless, John, you were arrested 3 times as a teenager.
Yeah, I had a difficulty focusing in school. My delinquency started in 3rd or 4th grade. At the time, I was going to Osprey Elementary School, which is now the Spanish Point Visitors Center. And I was easily bored, easily distracted, and just loved the excitement that trouble brought. It was exhilarating to me. So if it didn't find me, I would find it. And in high school, I became more delinquent and had several arrests, causing my parents to pick me up at then the Venice holding facility. And I remember one time I was arrested for shoplifting at the public shopping center, which is still there today. And my father asked me what I stole, and it was a can of potato sticks that cost 14 cents, and he hung up the phone and let me spend the night in jail.
Adversity builds character, true?
I don't know if that's it or not. I'm just very fortunate to have grown up in a time where you got not only a second chance, but a 3rd chance, a 4th chance, and a 5th chance. And I really feel sorry for the young people today who make similar mistakes that I made, and their careers are virtually over, and they have no opportunities as a result of it. So as you might imagine, I have a soft spot in my heart for good kids that do bad things, because that's how I would qualify my activities at the time. But I had a high school biology teacher that saw my derelict behavior and talked me into attempting to reroute I-75 as it came through Sarasota County. That was a miserable failure, but my career as an environmental activist was born at that time in 1973, and I've not stopped today.
No, you haven't. Meantime, back to Dr. Laurie Stryker. I loved how you wrote, because I ask all the panelists 1,000 questions beforehand and decide what I want to flush out in person. And I love that you said that you were so close to your two siblings, best friends. How often do you have that? I know you were close in age, but how lucky you were that your two siblings were your best friends.
Yeah, we really did get along. And we all went to Florida State University. So my older sister went, then I went, then my brother went. So we followed each other in a number of activities. So we always got along well and still, sadly my brother passed a year and a half ago, but my sister and I still spend some good time together.
You had a very dynamic a government teacher in high school. And you later did very well in government. Was that a direct link to your success?
Well, I think my that high school teacher I remember was very challenging to us. Ask questions, understand more. It's not just the three branches of government. It's all about what's power, what's influence, how are decisions made. So it was very helpful in really getting my interest in politics and in government. And then I became a political science faculty when I was right out of college.
We know you as a university president, but you actually had a few careers in between.
I did.
Yeah. Roxanne, tell us more about when you first got to this country. You were in the Northeast, New York to Vermont eventually. What struck you immediately about the differences in our culture versus back in South Africa?
So I think the biggest culture shock for me was going from, I lived in a big city, Johannesburg, moved to New York City. Going from New York City to Vermont was huge. That was, what was I doing there? I was wearing my little black suits and driving a sports car and getting stuck in the snow. That was the culture shock. Coming to this country was more the sadness of leaving my grandparents and knowing I'd never see them again. So that was probably it. Can I make one comment
Please.
about another panelist?
Yes.
John, I have a whole new respect for you. I'm really excited to learn that side of you. I had you revered on a pedestal. Now you're even higher.
Because think of all the things that we did that we didn't get caught for, right? When we were kids.
Speaking of John, I'll tell you a quick anecdote of my own. When I first arrived in 2004 in Sarasota, I was a reporter for Fox 13 News, and I didn't know anybody yet. And I reached out to Commissioner John Thaxton and said, could I come by and interview you today? And he said, well, I don't have a sport coat or a suit coat with me, so I'd rather we don't do it today. I said, well, I think we're about the same height. Can I lend you my coat, and will you do it then? He said, yeah, okay, what color? So he was very kind. That began our friendship back in 2004. And John, now let's defend you. We all had challenging teenage years, but walk us through what went from Sarasota County Jail to being a repeat Sarasota County Commissioner. Fill us in on those years in between. What were you doing?
Well, first, let's be clear. It was the Venice Holding Center.
We'll fix that in the
And
record.
so, I did not get to see the inside of Sarasota County Jail, in part thanks to the generosity of Len Silvertooth. But that's another story for another day. I'm sorry, Ray, now I threw myself off. Your question was?
Just fill us in the blanks from your teenage years
Okay.
until I met you in your
Sure.
40s. What'd you do?
Well, I did graduate from high school. I barely had a C average, thanks again to some generous grading by some of my teachers. By the way, the teacher that turned me around, his name is Bill Wimbish. He's a remarkable individual, and I owe him a great deal. So I wanted to be a high school biology teacher. The natural environment, being a hunter and a fisherman, has always intrigued me. So that was, I thought, my life's calling, and I thought I would, after getting out of high school, I would spend a few years at my father's real estate office. And that's what you're doing now, right, Ray?
That's true.
You have a real estate career. Well,
do.
good luck with that.
Thank you.
I started at the age of 18. I looked like I was 14, so convincing a senior clientele in Sarasota to entrust their most valuable asset to a 14-year-old barely shaving was a very difficult sale. So that's when I got involved in affordable housing, was right then. I started working with FHA and VA clients, and I'm still involved with affordable housing today, 40 years later. So I worked in my father's real estate office. Ultimately, we closed the office, and I went on to Cascade Realty and others. And I was relatively successful. I did not get into any more trouble, except for the trouble I caused with land use hearings and things like that, trying to preserve Sarasota County's natural environment, but I think of that as good trouble. And then people were constantly harassing me about running for public office. And I thought for sure that a person with no high school, with no college degree, no really formal post-secondary education training or technical training or anything, a juvenile criminal background was an unelectable person for Sarasota County Commission. So I said no and no and no, and finally I just said, yes, I'll do it, I'll lose, and that'll shut them up. Right. And I won. And so I won several terms after that, and the 12 years that I had on the county commissioner before being the first commissioner in the state of Florida to term out as a result of a Supreme Court decision were absolutely some of the most remarkable years of my life. And to this day, people come up to me at restaurants and events and just say thank you. So the old adage about it's a thankless job is not true. Don't let anyone tell you that. You know, public office is the most rewarding thing a person can dream of doing. And for me, it was a dream come true.
You could legally run again, couldn't you, now for commissioner?
Oh, I could have run immediately after that. I could have. As you know, I did choose, very unwisely so, to run for the supervisor of election, which I lost that race. It was the only campaign of, I think I've done 9 or 10 campaigns. It was the only one that I lost. It was just a dumb decision on my part to do it. But fortunately for Sarasota, the path led to Ron Turner being our supervisor of elections, and he is one of the most competent election supervisors in the southeastern United States. And I still get to play politics and public policy and do good in the community working for the amazing Gulf Coast Community Foundation.
All right, good. Now, Lori, we left you off in high school. Let's catch up here now. You were in South Florida, and you made what you said was a tough decision to go all the way across the state up to Tallahassee. And though your siblings did also, you said it wasn't easy. From Miami to Tallahassee, that must have been a culture shock in some ways. Talk more about that, and also your role back in the 1960s during women's liberation. Tell us more about that.
Well, when I went to when I went to Florida State, that was a big move. It's about a 13-hour drive at that time. I don't think we had 75, or we had the turnpike, and then it ended pretty quickly, and you drove through to North Florida. And Tallahassee was South Georgia. You know, it was very much a southern state, a southern place. It was still a place where people, blacks passing whites on the sidewalk might step off the sidewalk for them to pass. And yet Florida State became a very active place for civil rights, and later for women's rights. And so I got my political activism there. Actually, I went to Tallahassee to become a chemistry major, nutrition and chemistry. But I got there, and I might have been a good chemistry student in my own high school, but I didn't compete there. Plus, I had my first political science courses, and the rest is history. And that's where I got into this Latin American focus and to become an ambassador. And I still, you know, I could still get that, right? But the change of going to Tallahassee and getting involved with in political science, and I became a political science faculty member at Hillsborough Community College, which in Tampa, which was a brand new college. So I was a charter faculty member there when I was 22. So that was a real transition that I pursued for many years. I've had about 6 or 7 different careers, but the education one has been the most steady throughout. And one of my early involvements in education was on women's sports, because at the time, I remember in the legislature, there was a big thing of whether women should be allowed to play fast pitch. Yet all over the country, that's where all the scholarships were going. So our kids weren't able to do that. And with the help of legislators, we passed a bill to force the High School Athletic Association to have fast pitch for girls. And other Title IX came in, so there were a lot of things that came along that really I stayed very active in that area. And one of the greatest things is both of my granddaughters are college-level softball players. And I never thought I would see that turn around, that they would both be interested in sports and be competitive enough to get those scholarships. So
There's a big event, by the way, in Sarasota in early January of high-end women softball players.
yes.
So be aware of that and bring your daughters. Did you ever consider running for office?
I did, actually, because people would say, Stryker, that is a great name. And my name, Laurey, L-A-U-R-E-Y, they won't know if you're a man or a woman. You can use this name. I did, but actually, over the years, I've had the privilege of working for some very great elected leaders, Bob Graham and Betty Castor and others. And I always found myself, I was better behind the scenes than being the candidate. But I greatly admire guys like John who go out there, and I would say to everyone in the audience, please never think that this is a thankless job. It may look that way, but there is so much opportunity to make big differences, even though it's tough. It's a tough job, but it's one that I really admire the people that have stepped out and done it.
Roxanne, you had many different careers as well. You began in the fashion world, got into the import world, then the media. Walk us through those decisions and what you learned along the way.
Again, they were not necessarily line in the sand decisions. It was an evolution of using my talents, and really by the time I started Magnify Good, it was with purpose, with life's purpose of making a difference. My parents exposed us to helping people and doing what we could to make someone's life better, maybe even a smile. But that whole idea of connecting and making a difference, and that's how I landed with Magnify Good. I had breast cancer, and during my treatment, which wasn't fun, radiation for 7 weeks every day, I looked at that time and I realized how happy I was, which is crazy, right? I mean, I could have really sunk into being a victim, feeling sorry for myself. But what I learned was that when we have space to be who we are, without trying to do, just to be, we could tap into who we are and really create this sense of happiness. And that's how we transitioned to Magnify Good. At the time, we had an agency that was kind of generalist. We worked with developers and the Department of Defense, and we pivoted to this idea of magnifying good and using our talents, using our experience to make one grain of difference, for me, fulfills my life's purpose.
So you'll contend that the breast cancer wound up being a springboard for your back half of your life?
Absolutely. I think it's an attitude and a thought process, or even a thought molding when there is a challenge, that the challenge really is there to teach you lessons if you're open to getting them. And subsequently, I had many surgeries, I had infections, I was in a plane accident. So, I mean, we could all list adversity, but really for me, the lesson was building resilience and looking at the purpose. What was it? Why? The why. and not from a victim point of view.
Wonderful. You want to talk about that?
I did not know this about Roxanne or Lori before today, but all three of us experienced in our childhood, in person, racial inequities and gender bias. But yet here we are, three adults coming from different backgrounds, different continents, but all three of us are still very active in racial and gender equality issues.
I'm going to quote you back, John. You said something to me during our preparation for this day. You said that you don't see the glass as half full or half empty. This is very telling about you. How do you see it?
Well, yeah, it goes back to the old optimist, pessimist. Optimist sees the glass as half full, pessimist sees the glass as half empty. I consider myself a realist, and so I see the glass at 50% capacity.
And how does that shape your life?
I try to look at things with an open mind, without my ideas already being formulated, give others an opportunity to help me come to a good conclusion, and that was the trait that made me what I think I was a pretty successful county commissioner. It often made for very difficult decisions where I had to make important decisions that my friends were opposed to, but I think that's today something that all of us could use a little bit more of, and that is going into a situation without already deciding who's the friend, who's the foe, who's the enemy, and just kind of listening to the other side, being passionate and compassionate about their point of view as well, and then formulating your own opinion, and if it is disagreeing, then we just agree to disagree and look for commonalities in other place.
It's not easy. I mean, as you know, I was elected last year to the Sarasota County Charter Review Board, and we had a big decision to make last month involving single-member districts, and I knew no matter which way I voted, I would alienate half of my friends.
Right.
Not easy, is it?
No.
No. Laura, you said something interesting to me. You said that part of success is to accept failure. Tell me more about that important motto to you.
Well, I think I would say, and in my work with students and friends, is that take some chances. They have to be reasonable chances, but you're going to fail a lot of failure. But you have to learn from it and know what your strengths are, what the maybe how you analyze things. We're not real. So that's always been my philosophy. I learned that early on, and it's especially important, I think, working with young people, is that they understand that it's not a straight line. There's going to be all kinds of detours, and most of them turn out having some silver lining to them, things that you might not have tried if that hadn't really happened. So that's always been my view with students, especially.
How have students changed, by the way? I want to touch on that while you mentioned
Okay.
that. I mean, there are some who think that students are more fragile, their feelings get hurt more often, more coddled to these days. Did students change like that over your years on the campus?
I don't really see that change. I think that our students have been subjected to some pretty strong stressors. I think a lot of kids today came up. Their parents lost their homes, their jobs in the mid 2000s. They had they had the COVID, and then they've got the specter of climate change, and also a constant thing that says you won't have the same life, you won't have the same economic benefits of your parents. So I think there's a lot of stressors. I think that colleges have become more attentive to mental health issues, and they have those services on campus. The state has funded that, individual campuses, to recognize that there are challenges just being young and changing to really have those services on campus. But I don't see that. I think that students are more career focused today, and that has its own anxiety. The idea of getting out of college, getting a good job, and not having student debt. Those elements, I think, have produced more angst, but also students today have a tremendous ethic in community service. I see so much of that.
Roxanne, I see you nodding your head. You're also an employer in the area. What has changed, or has it changed, with the caliber of those who apply to jobs with you? You seen the same kind of young person come along, or has it changed at all, do you think?
I don't really see. There are the changes that Laurie mentioned, but they come with who they are, right? If they're applying for a job, most of them want to succeed, want to be their best selves. And I think as employees, it's really incumbent on us not to only support professional development, but personal development as well. And so this idea, this destigmatization now of mental health that I think came out of the pandemic is something that a lot of employers are gravitating to, and it's something I really, really believe in, supporting people where they are, not telling them what they need, but being there to fulfill any kind of purpose that they may have.
Let's go back to Commissioner Realist. Despite the pandemic and the tragedy that ensued in some cases, do you think that there was any silver lining? Did our society grow in any way due to that adversity? It's not over yet, I realize.
Sure, I think the question is yes, but I would like to piggyback on something Roxanne said, and that is the destigmatization of mental health. I still think we have a long way to go. It is not yet out of the closet as it should be, and there needs to be a priority funding in our community to meet the needs that have been exacerbated by the pandemic. And so I look forward to my continued work with the Sarasota County Commission on identifying a sustainable funding source that can take care of these needs. But I think one of the windfalls of the pandemic is the virtual media. While this may not be an ideal example of it today, I have found that I can now get anywhere between 9 and 12 appointments in a day because I'm not driving all over the county to get to the appointments. I can actually do them virtually. So I think a lot of the technology dealing with that area was advanced probably 10 or 15 years, and I think that while I don't think that it's going to replace the intimacy and necessity of face-to-face meetings, there are a lot of things that we can be doing sitting in our office, sitting in our homes that do not involve driving and consuming all of that fossil fuel and time that it takes to get there. So I think that was a clear windfall, and probably one from my household, and I think a lot of households saw this, is that we really got to see our family members like we have not seen them before. We spent a great deal of time together, not by choice, but I think in many cases that has drawn us closer together and with a greater appreciation of our spouses and our children's daily needs.
I would bet you've got an electric car. Yes?
I have a hybrid car
There you go.
and an electric car, both.
We're in the home stretch now, and I've got to ask you all before we run out of time about the Pines. So, Lori, I'll start with you. Why do you think the Pines is an important part of our community, and why it's so worthy of supporting?
Well, I've learned of the Pines from personal experience, not with my own family, but with close friends who've had their families have lived at the Pines. And I just know it as both a high quality, but also an engaged community group. You know, there's this whole idea of bringing children on the campus, and the engagement has been very noticeable over the years, and I think that makes all the difference. And the idea that folks that go in there that don't have means have a way of really living their lives, their end of their lives with dignity is just an incredible resource in the community that I'm not sure a lot of places around the state or country have. So I think it's a blessing for the community.
Let's shift down to Roxanne now and ask the same question about the value of the Pines in our community, Roxanne?
Well, obviously everything that Laurie said, but we, Magnify Good, our firm, was very, very fortunate to do some work with the Pines and to find out the essence, that emotional connection of people who may not necessarily know about the Pines or be advocates of the Pines. And I'm going to sum it up in one statement. This is what we came out with. Love lives here. And it does. That's what people want in the end. I'm going to tell a quick anecdote. I didn't think I could do this, but I am going to do this. My dad passed a few weeks ago, and it was a wonderful passing. I know we were fortunate. We all said goodbye. He was peaceful. He had peace at the end. He was 93. But he gave us each a personal mantra. And what he said to me was, honey, it's just love in the end. There's nothing else. And I thought of the Pines when he said that. Phew, I got over that.
Yeah,
one.
give me the chills, it's too. Yeah, very nice. John, the Pines?
Well, I do have a personal connection to the Pines. One of my cousins worked there for a good number of years as the van driver, but more direct was my grandmother was a resident at the Pines, Margaret Lewis, and she went to the Pines by choice. She was familiar with the facility, and some of her friends were there, so she had visited. She waited for the opportunity to get the room that was directly across from children's first playground, because she did not want to be in a quiet room. She wanted a room where she could hear children playing. So for me personally, the Pines brought my grandmother peace and just a beautiful residence in the last years of her life. I was going to use one word to describe the Pines, and that word was dignity. So thank you, Laurie, for taking that. So now I'm sitting here thinking I got to come up with another word. And then I thought, well, the perfect word is love. And then Laurie takes love from me. So now I'm searching, and I just saw the other night a movie about Aretha Franklin, and it was called Respect.
Yeah.
And I think if you put those three words together, dignity, respect, and love, you've defined the Pines and just the value that they bring to this community. I don't think could be defined in any other words any better.
John Thaxton, Roxanne Jaffe, and Dr. Laurie Stryker, thank you. This has been a wonderful exchange of our background and our futures and ideas. The time always just flies by so fast. Thank you for sharing of yourselves today and giving of the Pines. And thank you also for taking part in this. We're going to see Janet in one moment, but I want to personally say congratulations to Janet and to Mike and to Terry and all the staff at the Pines. You do such a great job, and you're such an important part of our community. So for those of you watching, please continue to support it in any way you can. Now, here again is Janet from the Pines Foundation. Thank you.
So I know all of you are clapping at home as you would if you were here with us. What a remarkable panel that we had today. I want to thank all of you for making such a difference in my life personally, but also the lives of our community and sharing your story and your sacrifice that's brought you here today. So thank you so much. And Ray, you know, it's like you're part of Wit and Wisdom forever. It's amazing to have you here with us and to continue your legacy of 9 years with us. To interview these wonderful panelists over the years has just been a tremendous contribution. So thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to, of course, thank our board of trustees of Pines Foundation and of Pines of Sarasota, our board of directors. Without their leadership and guidance, we could not do what we do every day for our wonderful residents. I want to thank Terry Arnell, our director of communication, who always does a tremendous job in everything that she does, but especially Wit and Wisdom. This is her first love, I can guarantee that. So thank you, Terry, for what you have done. And the staff of Pines of Sarasota Foundation, what a journey it has been. And we thank you for your guidance and leadership on a daily basis as we serve our donors. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you here in 2022. Mike and I are now going back to make sure that new building gets opened so you can tour it and see it. So thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.